Hello and welcome to the Etoft21sports show for January 24th. How is everyone doing? My name is Eric and I'm the man behind Etoft21sports. We have a phenomenal show laid out for you today. My boy Scott from Twin Spirals, he's coming on. Him and I are going to talk some NFL. We're going to look back at last weekend and tell you the bets to lock in for this weekend. Plus, my boy Gino is going to tell you his horse racing bet of the day. And there's some big races this weekend over at Gulfstream Park. Let's see what Gino has a cooking.
Got a best bet for you this week coming up, and it's at Gulfstream Park. It's a big day for Pegasus card at Gulfstream. Let's take a look at the Pegasus Filly and Mare Turf. It's going to go as race number 11. They already got the odds out, morning lines up for some of these. I like the number 3, Wakanaka. This race should have a good amount of early speed signed on. You have Dalika and Artie's Princess down on the rail. They're going to be pushing it. Mon Stella's pretty quick. Queen Goddess is pretty quick. And towards the outside, you have Bay Storm, who also should be forwardly placed. They should be winging it, and I think it sets up very well for Wakanaka, who's kept really nice company. And her only poor races are races where she's able to, she catches horses that just have a little bit more tactical speed than her. So let's give Wakanaka a big look.
Make sure to give my boy Gino a follow at It's Me Gino B on Twitter. Great dude. I'm on his podcast every single week, talking either college basketball, NBA, or NFL. Now, we have an absolute huge weekend of football. Really looking forward to talking to Scott. FYI, Scott did kick my ass in our third, fourth playoff in fantasy football this year. I'm sure he'll talk a little trash to me, rightfully so, because he gave me an ass kicking. So without further ado, let's welcome Scott Shapiro from Twin Spirals to the show. Scott, how you doing, my man?
What's up, Eric? Great to join you. I don't know if I deserve to be able to talk any smack with fantasy. I didn't win the league, and that's, what it's all about.
Hey, you know what? I mean, one week at a time, man. I battled. I've kind of felt, how can I said to someone else in the league, I felt like the 89 Pistons, just a defensive team.
I had the defense, like the least amount of points by far.
I was living and dying by Justin Fields. Like, if he didn't go, I was done. That was my team. I had some key injuries at the beginning of the year. So
yeah, when he was healthy and at his best, he was the kind of quarterback that could carry you. We saw Lamar Jackson do in some years and had that upside. But obviously, with that Bears team and kind of the ups and downs, it was hard to count on him every game, right?
Yeah, it's an entertaining thing what they have going on in Chicago. I'm really interested for the off season. I'm a huge Lions fan, but I do live in the suburbs of Chicago, so it's kind of one of those double-edged swords. You know what I mean? So
yeah, what suburb do you live in?
I live in the Vernon Hills, Libertyville, in that area.
I lived in Lincoln Park the year after I went to college, and I have friends in Chicago. But Lions, man, you got to be fired up. I know it's a long time coming, but that offensive line, the skill position players, you got a few defensive players, and I don't know if Goff will get you to a title, but you got a lot of good things going on.
We're heading in the right direction. Hopefully, I read some stats of Detroit's first winning sports team in a while in any sport. So, we're headed in the right direction. Before we jump into everything, we have a couple questions. About week 2, week 3, I gave out on the show the Bengals 11-1 to win the AFC. We're getting a lot of questions already about hedging that. We're also sitting on the 49ers 14-1 to win the NFC.
Nice.
And the Eagles 30-1 to win it all. So we got a lot of coverage. I guess we're getting questions like hedging. How do you feel about hedging? Sports betting?
Well, when it comes to futures at those prices, I totally could understand it. Overall, I like to probably hedge less than maybe others, because when you make the bet, you're betting it, based on the actual bet. But when you've come this far, you said you have the Bengals and the Niners conference and the Eagles Super Bowl, right?
Yeah.
So, I guess there's a legitimate way to hedge the Eagles maybe on the money line in this game and really lock something up, or gamble, because if the Eagles win, they're going to, depending on Mahomes' health, they could easily be favored. I don't know. Those are big numbers, I guess, depending on how much of your budget you put into it. You know, if it was a real small wager, I probably wouldn't hedge. If it was a significant wager based on my budget, wouldn't mind locking something in. It's too bad for the Bengals that, you know, when you made the bet and even going into the playoffs, you had to think that you'd be plus money on the money line if you made the AFC Championship game, and that just isn't materializing for a number of reasons.
Yeah, it's really interesting, but I think I liked what you said. Like, if you don't, how you did it, you know what I mean? Like, if you don't really need the money, you know, this is gambling. If you don't really need the money, I don't think hedging is it. You put it in there with a purpose, just let it ride, see what happens. So I totally agree with you 100%. For those watching for the first time, how the show works is we're going to alternate back and forth our takeaways from the week before, and then we're going to shift over to the betting aspect. We're just going to talk about what bets we like, what bets we locked in. We're each going to have 3 takeaways of 3 bets. So I'm going to let Scott kick us off first. Scott, what is your first takeaway from the divisional round?
Well, maybe we knew this going in. Maybe we knew it years ago. Maybe we found out on Sunday, a couple days ago. But I think we know that Dak Prescott is a serviceable, better than that, good quarterback in the regular season. But no matter what statistics he puts up, he is not an elite quarterback because he just does not show up in the biggest games and play his best ball, whether that be because he isn't as good as the elite players. Maybe it's because he, you know, there's a number of reasons it could be, but what it isn't is he's always had surrounding casts that are good enough. And he's been put in positions to, at this point, at least succeed in one postseason, and he just does not come through when it matters most. Obviously, the defense that he played with the Niners, and just in general, you're running into quality competition, you know, come January, come postseason. But he's just shown that he's at least one tier below the top quarterbacks in the NFL.
Here's a little gambling question for you.
Sure.
You know, at the beginning of the year, they always put out prices and everything, like who's going to have the most interceptions, who's going to have the most TDs, et cetera, et cetera, et cetera.
Right.
Guess who set a record of having the highest prop payout for having the most interceptions in the season?
Dak? Did he really?
Yeah. He was the highest one ever to win.
What did he pay?
I believe it was like 17, 18 to 1.
It's crazy that happened, especially, I mean, if you made that bet and then he gets hurt, but you got to think
I mean, it's mind-boggling, absolute mind-boggling. I agree with you 100% about that, and that kind of brings me to one of my points. I really thought the Cowboys had a legitimate shot to win it this year, but Dak just kept on turning the ball over. That was a 7-point game. The Cowboys missed a field goal. At the end of the first half, Dak drove them down there, threw an INT. They're in field goal range. God only knows, but the percentages said he was going to make it. 49ers drove down, kicked the field goal. That's 7 points right there. That's the game. You look at what they have: Pollard, Schultz, Steele, Peters, Van Der Esch, Barr, Fowler, plus many more. They have a ton of free agents coming up. Plus, you got to figure Quinn's going to be gone. You got to figure, I think he's shown he deserves another chance to be a head coach. I think this team's going to take a huge step backwards next year. And kind of a team we need to look to kind of basically play against, maybe take some team total unders next year and look to fade, because we saw how much their offense struggled to move the ball when Pollard got hurt. And what was that last play? Hey, let me put Zeke Elliott behind as center and just let him get plowed by a deep, like what is, and then you have Jimmy Johnson, you know what I mean? Their second best coach ever. I mean, come on. You know,
they're on tilt, right? They're on tilt. I mean, you had even I saw it after the fact, but even their own Twitter kind of got after Dak. You never see the home team do anything other than, you know, pat their players on the back. So they are definitely on tilt in many ways, that organization. And it just seems like, I don't know. Personally, I don't know how anyone could think Mike McCarthy's the answer as a head coach, but I guess when you make the postseason, you got to buy yourself more time.
Do you think they move to Peyton?
I think they'd like to. Do you think Peyton is going to choose, you know, do you think that's where he'd want to go first and foremost? It seems like he's got, obviously the Saints have the final say here, but you think Peyton wants to go to Dallas where it's Jerry's world?
I mean, I look at it like this, okay? I don't want to go to Denver because I'm going to have to play Herbert
Agreed.
or Mahomes 4 games a year. I don't want to go to the Texans because of the lack of ownership, leadership positions, even though there's no real, like, that would be the easiest division to win, the South, I feel. And I don't want to go to Arizona because I'm going to have to compete with the 49ers, McVay, Stafford coming back, and there's something going on in Seattle with what they're rebuilding. Dallas, you have CD, you have Pollard, you have a decent offensive line, you have Parsons, you have some pieces there. So, I mean, I think of the choices that would kind of be up there. If that, I mean, obviously with Los Angeles Chargers off the map now.
Carolina maybe seems to be in the mix. No, you make good points. I mean, they might have the best situation, but how much does, I mean, I don't know what it would be like dealing with Jerry Jones. It could be a lot better than I think, could be worse than I think, but obviously he does kind of look over that franchise a little bit differently than most owners. Maybe it's positive in some ways, but I don't know. But yeah, you bring up a good point, but regardless, I am not a Michael McCarthy fan. I mean, I just am not a Mike McCarthy
fan. I mean, I totally agree with you.
Yeah.
Correct. Congrats to Elena for making it past 7 a.m. for Grandma A making it up this late. What is your next takeaway?
Lou Anarumo, the Bengals defensive coordinator, is not only highly underrated, but he should be getting more looks at some of these coaching vacancies. I know that defensive-minded coaches are not the cutting edge, not the vogue. Cutting edge isn't the right word. Not in vogue right now, and it's understandable to many extents. I mean, getting your quarterback to play at a high level, having offensive firepower certainly is the thing in the NFL that matters most. But this guy, I mean, the game plans he put together, he does not have a ton of talent on the Bengals. They're not talent deficient, but they're nowhere near the top talent in the league. But they play the smartest brand of football you can as a defense. They play as a team. They tackle well. And after just putting on an absolute clinic in Buffalo, I would think that he should be getting a lot more love than he is. Maybe he will in the future. Maybe it's a defense thing, and most guys are looking towards offensive head coaches. But I think he's one of the top minds, not in a non-head coaching role in the NFL, and he proved it. And you've been on the Bengals all year. I jumped in at the halfway point and got in on them to win the Super Bowl at but not as good a price, but still a good one. But so we both know that this team is led by Joe Burrow, and their offense is awesome, but their defense is extremely well coached.
Yeah, I mean, their defense has been playing lights out. And I think one of the most underrated players they have is DJ Reader. I mean, what he's able to do up front, clog the middle, get to the quarterback. I think that's a big piece. And I think you're right. I think he's someone that should be getting a lot more looks. You put him with what the defensive weapons they have in Carolina. I think that would be a home run hire for a team like the Panthers, or maybe even a team like the Broncos. The defensive first team, get a good established offensive coordinator. I like that. I think he definitely deserves a look at an NFL coaching job. My next takeaway: where was Travis Etienne? Where was he in the fourth quarter? Where I didn't see him at all on the field. He's your first round pick. I went on record when they made the pick that this was an awful pick. They shouldn't have used it on a running back. And you have 5'0" Jamal Agnew and 5'0" JaMychal Hastings in the game when you're trying to close the game and put yourself in a position to win. I know Agnew's getting a lot of heat for the fumble, but he should have never been in that position. And also, props to Doug Peterson for kicking the field goal to get that +8.5, +9. Props to Dougie. Props to Dougie for being with the people. Thankfully, I was able last week. One of the bets I gave out was over 10.5 yards receiving. Thankfully, I was able to get that home. Some people jumped on it late, ballooned up to 25.5, which also kind of brings me to part 2 of this. Player props came out this morning. If you guys are going to be betting player props, betting the over on players like Etienne, Lamb, Diggs, those guys, you got to get in on those props early, because those guys, those are the numbers that are going to rise. If you're going more of an under better, then you can kind of linger in the wind and wait until later in the week. But if you're going to be betting overs on these, ASAP when these numbers drop, you got to be doing your work. When they come out for Tuesday morning, you got to be ready to rock and roll.
Real quick on ETN. One thing that I don't understand most about their usage of him, and I agree with your sentiments in general, where was he? Their lack of using him in the passing game was very odd this year. And I think Doug Peterson had a tremendous year with that team, obviously taking them 8 steps above what Urban Meyer did and getting Trevor Lawrence to kind of get closer to that ceiling. But ETN caught the ball from Lawrence in college. And if you're going to take him where they did drafted him, which was already questionable, you've got to use him as a dual threat. You've got to use him, get him in space in the passing game. And if you're not using him correctly, and it was even worse draft pick.
I thought he was kind of a step below Reggie Bush. You know what I mean? I thought they could have Reggie Bush and Mark Ingram 2.0, but look, they obviously got rid of Robinson, who is going to be the Ingram. You had Etienne, and I don't think he's an every down back. Leo chimes in. Love the hat, Scott. You got to give Rico. People call me Uncle Rico. You got to give me some pointers. So, what is your next takeaway, Scott?
The third one is going to go right back to the Bengals. I'm so into this team right now, but Joe Burrow, everyone knew he was going to be a good NFL quarterback. Maybe others knew he was going to be this good, but he has cemented himself in the top 2 quarterbacks in the NFL, in my opinion. That's not a knock on Josh Allen. That's not a knock on Jalen Hurts. That's not a knock on anybody else you want to put in the mix. But this is the guy you want to have the ball in his hands when the games matter most. I mean, talking about cool, calm, and collected. I mean, this guy goes into Buffalo as if it's a week 3 game in Soldier Field or something against the bad Bears. I mean, he just looks so good. And what's really made the difference this year is his ability or desire to check the ball down instead of force it downfield like he did. I mean, he did it. He made a living doing that last year to Jamar Chase, T. Higgins, and crew. But now when he's looking at that first look, if it's not there, he's checking it down and getting 4, 5, 6 yards with Mixon, with Hayden Hurst, with whoever it might be, and just I mean, they're just so tough to stop when they're ahead of the chains. And he's just been a joy to watch. I hope he plays well the next couple of games, assuming there is a couple of games. But everyone knows Joe Burrow is great, but I think it's time to maybe put him up there with Patrick Mahomes.
Yeah, I mean, he's a cool dude, man. And
he is.
I really think the main thing that how can I say this? He doesn't let the emotions get the best of him. He's always has one demeanor. And when you're a leader of a team, I think it's really important that you don't let the emotions get the best of you. You're able to stay cool, calm, and not show the other members of the team that you're getting down, because they're going to look at you, even if they're on the defensive special team side. If you look defeated, they'll look defeated. They're going to follow you. So I think Joe's special. I think he's great. And honestly, what was Ohio State thinking, man?
I mean, that's like, that's what I come back to all the time. I mean, geez.
What was Ohio State thinking? What's next for the Bills? That's what C. Spear chimes in. And that kind of is my point number 3. I have no clue what they were doing. I watched that game and I'm sitting there. I literally have no clue what they were doing. Since Aurier, the DB, went out for the Bengals, 10-week sample size. The Bengals were giving up the 4th most yards passing and the 4th most explosive play rate. The Bills went down the field, the 2nd, 3rd play of the game, the one where they had Diggs, barely overthrew him. After that play, they did not go down the field until that 3rd and short play in the 4th quarter where Allen overthrew Gabriel Davis. I really didn't understand that at all. Why aren't you going down the field more and trying to take advantage of Gabe Davis or Stephon Diggs? I didn't understand that. And teams are wanting to interview Ken Dorsey. We mentioned the Carolina Panthers before. Rumor has it they're going after Ken Dorsey, and I don't understand that, because in my eyes, all Ken Dorsey is responsible for is the regression in Josh Allen's game. Josh Allen, it took a huge step backwards, and there was no creativity from the offense that Daboll installed. I really feel that they need to move on from Ken Dorsey and look in a different direction. And who better than Jim Caldwell? Jim Caldwell is just sitting at home waiting for the right opportunity. Jim Caldwell came to the Bears interview with a whole offense already designed for Justin Fields, and they passed up on him. I'm sure he'd do the same for Josh Allen. And just think what he would be, an offensive mind like Jim Caldwell, who for whatever reason keeps on getting passed over. Most successful coach in the history of my Lions. He keeps on getting passed over, won a Super Bowl in Indianapolis. I think that would be a great hire. And then on the defensive end, I don't understand what Leslie Frazier was doing. You're playing a team that's missing 3 offensive linemen, and you're routinely playing cover 2 or nickel defense, and you're only rushing 4. The Bengals blitzed more than the Buffalo Bills did, and I don't understand that. And I was texting, like, I have a couple friends that coach in the league, a couple friends that are scouts in the league, and one guy said, this game is why Leslie Frazier's not an NFL coach, because he was kind of just stuck in his old ways of doing things and wasn't able to adapt to what needed to be done. And I really feel that if the Bills want to get a championship with Josh Allen, they need 2 completely different coordinators. I'm calling Vic Fangio. Here's the keys to the defense. I'm calling Caldwell. Here's the keys to the offense. That's why I'm doing it from the Buffalo Bills. But they need to make some serious changes on both the offensive and defensive side of the ball.
All good points there. It's, you look to the Eagles and Nick Sirianni, and this is a guy that has been extremely successful, has got a great roster, but what is most noteworthy is he changes things up when he needs to and to his opponents, whereas a lot of these NFL coaches, like you said, shouldn't be the case with anyone, but especially not a younger guy like Ken Dorsey. But Leslie Frazier, not that surprising that it happened, but it's the truth. And, there's no doubt that Josh Allen took a step backwards. I mean, it appeared that he was getting to that point where he was all world. And, he had to be Superman a lot this year, but he definitely regressed, especially when it came to protecting the football. And, it's real. They just seem rattled. I mean, the Bengals just had, they just seemed like the Bills just seemed like they had no answers. And it was a lot earlier on than you would have liked to think that when you have an offense that's considered elite.
Yeah, it was just a weird game. And we need to remember, like, last year there was that game where Buffalo went in on Monday Night Football and the Patriots just ran the ball on them. After that game, what Dable, is they started running the ball 20 times with a mixture of Singletary, Duke Johnson, and whoever the third string back was.
Zach Moss.
And I looked back, there was never a game where Cook and Singletary got like 20 touches. At the beginning of the year, I thought they were going to have this elite zone running game because they brought in the offensive line coach. And I'm sorry, I'm spacing on his name, but this was the offensive line coach when Gurley was having those monster years in Los Angeles for the Rams. And you drafted James Cook, who's a zone runner. I was like, oh my God, they're like going to be leaning on this run game. And it just never materialized. I don't know. It was real weird vibes coming out of Buffalo. And I think there's a lot of changes that need to be done there if they want to be serious next year.
The whole thing with the Bills was when Von Miller went down. I mean, they won a bunch of games, but if you're just watching them play, they did not seem to be the same team. I mean, their defense had tons of injuries in the secondary and lost their best pass rusher, but there was just something else. And I'm with you. They just weren't. They were, it's easy to say now. I'm saying it after the fact, but I said it elsewhere. They were overrated going into the playoffs. It didn't mean Josh Allen couldn't be a hero, but they had many more holes than people wanted to admit.
Yeah, they had a lot of issues. Now, everyone's favorite part of the show, we are shifting our attention over to the betting aspect. Scott's going to give 3 bets. I'm going to give 3 bets. We may have some the same, some different, but it's betting, and this is what we are here for, folks. Scott, what is your first bet, my friend?
All right, I'm going to go with the under in Bengals Chiefs. I know people think of Joe Burrow and Patrick Mahomes, and they want to think offense, ton of firepower on the field. But 2 reasons. One, you've got the Bengals defense that tackles extremely well. Talked about that. Well coached. Going to keep likely. I know they give up some big plays, but I think for the most part against the Chiefs, they'll sit back a little more, won't give up too many big plays. Maybe Marquez Valdez-Scantling will make a big play of some sort, but that just hasn't come to fruition. But overall, just a team that I don't think has it in them to beat that defense deep. And then maybe more importantly in this is that the Bengals offensive line was the talk of the town. In fact, it probably had a lot to do with the elevation of that line from 4.5, all the way up to 6. And they really came through, but it was a Bills defense that had struggled to rush the passer. And you mentioned the game plan from Leslie Frazier and crew that definitely did not force or put the Bengals defensive line or offensive line in very tough positions. But the Chiefs are a little stronger in terms of pass rush. It's 2 weeks now with the Bengals offensive line, or if maybe one of these guys comes back, but I don't foresee that happening. I think it's going to be a little bit more difficult for them. The Chiefs will play a little bit better defense than the Bills did. I think this will be an enjoyable game. I think it stays in the low 40s though, and it's a close one. So we'll go under 46.5.
I like that. I like that a lot. Plus, got to figure they're going to play at a slower pace too with Kansas City. Because of obviously what's going on with Mahomes and everything, maybe a little bit more Pacheco, a little bit more McKinnon, lean on that run game a little bit more. Let me ask you this. If you're Andy Reid, do you think to yourself, because one of the best things Mahomes does is he's able to kind of extend plays with his legs, a lot of ad-lib stuff, so to speak, with Kelsey. Do you think Reid is thinking maybe Henny gives me the best chance to win this game?
That's a tough question. And I know he came in, he drove them down the field, but it's just so different, coming in as a backup like that with the adrenaline flowing and the team not having planned for you. I don't think that's possible. What about you though? What do you think?
I don't think so. I mean, Mahomes, I'm going to tell you this, I was never really a big Mahomes guy until this season. This season, he did a couple things. Number one, how he acted on the sideline, not wanting to come out of the game, spiking his coat, refusing to come out of the game. But it was also something else. You know who we've not seen once at a game or any social media posts from a game this year? His brother and his wife. He literally told them, no, you're not coming around. You're not going to be there. You're not going to do that. I am trying to win, and you are hurting my ability to win. You're putting spotlight on yourself, and you're taking away from me and my team. And I think that for me, that was big. So I like Mahomes. I think he's going to play. I think they're going to lean on that run game, though. Try to get, McKinnon, Smith-Schuster in space, a lot of stuff like that. It's going to be really interesting, though, how that game plays out.
No, I agree. And, Mahomes is brilliant and he makes these incredible plays, but I agree he's worn on me more and more in a positive direction, just the way he's behaved. He's a total pro. And you see, I won't use any names. You see some quarterbacks that get hurt and they're out way longer than you would suspect. They don't seem upset to leave their team and go to the locker room and not return. And then you've got Mahomes, who was the polar opposite this week. He wasn't not playing.
He's a tough SOB, man. He's a tough SOB.
He is.
My first play is this, and I am going to Philly, and no, it's not the 49ers. I took the Eagles at -2.5. I also got them at -1.5 off of openers. 1 seeds in the championship round are 56% ATS. When they're the favorite, that goes up to 57% ATS. Right now, the 49ers are on a 12-game winning streak. I took a look. Teams that are on a 9-game winning streak or more in the championship round are only 20% ATS. There's been 4 rookies that have played in the AFC or NFC championship game. 1999, Sean King for the Buccaneers, lost to the Rams. 2004, Big Ben for the Steelers, obviously, lost to the Patriots, 41-27. 2008, Jersey Joe Flacco. Ravens lost to the Steelers, 23-14. 2009, Mark Sanchez of the Jets lost to the Colts, 30-17. Rookie quarterbacks in this round have yet to win. This is the best offensive line that the 49ers have played, and the Eagles are going to win the point of attack and be able to run the ball on the ground. By running the ball on the ground, what's it going to do? It's going to open up the RPO, run pass option for Hurts. Hurts is going to be able to run it. He's going to be able to hit Devontae Smith, hit A.J. Brown, take advantage of the holes that are in the 49ers secondary. When the 49ers have played a team that's top 10 defensively per DVOA, they've only averaged 15 points per game. You have an elite defense, one of the best defenses, top 5 defenses in the league. I know people are going to say they can't stop the run, but when you look at the splits when Jordan Davis is there, they're able to stop the run. I think they're going to be able to stop the run. This team is very good. I believe they're 4th in the league in interceptions. I think Purdy's going to have one, maybe prop bet Purdy over 2.5, 1.5 receptions, get a little plus money. This is going to be the hardest environment he's ever played in. I love the Eagles here. I put him in at 1.5, and I also put him in at 2.5. I think anything under 3 is a buy.
Yeah, it hurts me to say that I agree that the Eagles are definitely the right side in here, because I do have a future like you in the 49ers to win the NFC. Got it a little later on. Got it after they lost to the Chiefs when they got McCaffrey, but after the Chiefs when they got blown out, I jumped in on that. And yeah, I mean, I totally see it. I mean, I wouldn't be shocked. This Niners team is loaded just like the Eagles, but Purdy kind of took a step backwards against Dallas. He didn't make the key mistakes like Dak did, but he tried to throw him one, and he's kind of gotten away with a lot of turnover-worthy plays throughout his run. It's not a rip on him. He's been tremendous given the situation. Obviously, it's been talked about a lot what the situation he's been dropped into. It's a great one, but this is the toughest task yet, and the Niners probably should be, you know, I know you said in the notes, 3 or less, you're in on, or 3 or less, you're in on the Eagles, I believe is the way you put it. And yeah, I totally get it. I think in reality, this should probably be a 3-point spread.
I mean, that catch, I mean, I had the under and I had the Cowboys plus 4. I mean, that catch by Kittle where he like put it on his, I'm like, he bobbled it and put it on his head. Cowboys easily should have covered that game. There's been some stuff breaking the 49ers way. I unfortunately, I think it comes to an end this week. Scott, what is your second bet?
Well, I'm going to kind of piggyback off a little bit of your point, one of your points on the Eagles, in that I do think the passing game is the way the Eagles are going to win this game. Not to say that they can't run the ball against the 49ers, but I talked about it earlier. What Nick Sirianni does is he doesn't build his game plan around what he wants to do or his, you know, own model, if you will, or own system. He builds his game plan around the deficiencies of the other team. Now, the Niners, the best defense the Eagles will probably face this year, arguably. There's a couple other decent ones or solid ones they faced, obviously. But the Niners better against the run in the pass. They've shown the ability to give up the big play. And who was it that didn't get a lot of targets compared to normal in the divisional round? He still put up a pretty good game because he's A.J. Brown. But I think when A.J. Brown hasn't gotten fed the week before, the majority of the times he does in the next game. And I just think A.J. Brown is going to make more than one big play in this game based on all of those things. So we're going to go over 70.5. I believe I found a minus 115 on a couple different sites. A.J. Brown over 70.5 yards.
I like it. I like it a lot. We got one quick questions about the 49ers. With Purdy's success, where are the 49ers going to go in the offseason? Does he stay the starter? I mean, you got Jimmy G, you got Trey Lance, you got Purdy. You're Shanahan. What are you doing?
Not Tom Brady? That's a rumor I've heard as well.
One of the rumors, too.
I don't think it'll be Jimmy G. I don't. I could be wrong on it, but I don't. If Purdy wins this game, it's going to be hard for them not to go to him. Otherwise, it seems like Shanahan it still wants to give Lance another run. I know it's been a weird, bumpy road for him, and he certainly has not looked like he's able to run this offense at the level that Jimmy G and Purdy have, which is good, not elite by any stretch, but good enough with this team and this system. But I still think Shanahan wants to try to make Lance work, a guy that can create himself and not just create within the offense. So maybe they keep Lance and Purdy around. I also heard Lance to a couple of other spots, including the Colts. So if I'm them, I might can they keep, pull off keeping Lance and Purdy around with their egos and the money situation? They could probably make that work and let them battle it out. And that would be probably the way I would approach. How about you?
Yeah. I mean, I'll be honest. I'm not a Trey Lance guy. I just
I
feel
get
like
it.
he hasn't really played that much football over the last couple of years. I think that's going to catch up to him. I think there was unrealistic comparison to Josh Allen, just because of his size. So I think they got to stay with Purdy. I would unload Garoppolo. I'm sure there's going to be tons of teams this year that need a quarterback. And then, if you can get a second round draft pick for Lance, I take that in a heartbeat personally. I mean, that's just me.
No. I sorry, real quick. I don't necessarily know if I believe in Lance either. He looks like a deer in headlights out there a
Yeah.
little bit. And I don't know why with the team they have, they'd want to take, even mess with it, right? I mean, you need it. You get a guy, and I hate to use the word manager, but you get a manager and you're an elite team already. So, but it just seems like Shanahan has this thing for Lance.
Yeah, it does. It does kind of seem like he has it, like that's his guy and that's who he wants to be with. So I get it. It's going to be an interesting offseason because if you really think about it, there's a ton of teams that are going to be looking at that quarterback position. And in my eyes, I know this draft class is getting a lot of hype. There's only one guy. I'm a Lions fan. If CJ Stroud's on the board, that's the only guy I want. I think Bryce Young, I think he's too small, to be really honest. I just think he's too small of a guy to have success in the league.
Interesting.
My second bet, I'm going to an Eagles wide receiver, but I'm going in a different direction. I took Devontae Smith over 65.5 yards receiving. You mentioned it. The weakness of the 49ers defense is the secondary. Ward, who works out of the slot where majority of the time that's where Smith lines up, is allowing an 81% catch rate to opposing wide receivers. The 49ers are 6th in yards per target allowed to slot wide receivers. I expect Smith to see an uptick in targets this game just because the 49ers are the best in the league defending the tight end. So Dallas Dober's targets are going to go to Smith. I think he's going to be the beneficiary of that. He's gone over this total 4 of the last 5 games. In that time span, he's averaging 10.2 targets a game, 7 receptions, and 96.2 yards. But to the point you made about A.J. Brown, he's going to be totally overlooked in DFS, so I'm totally having him in the majority of my DFS lineups this weekend because I think he's going to be insanely underowned.
I think you could get away easily, especially in a 2-game slate. And speaking of DFS, and get away with playing AJ and Devonta, and probably even Hurts too. Especially if you think the Eagles are going to put up mid to high 20s, and that's almost a no-brainer. Especially for me, I think the Bengals Chiefs might go under. So now we're talking.
Yeah, that'd be perfect. If both of them hit, that'd be perfect because 49ers, Warner is really good in coverage, and he's going to be covering the tight end. So I think Eagles tight end Dallas is going to be completely shut out. So I think both these wide receivers are going to be in line for absolutely huge games from Jalen Hurts. Third and final bet, Scott. Where are you going?
Yeah, I'm going to go with an under. I'm going to go to the Chiefs, Bengals back over that way. And I'm going to take the under on Juju Smith-Schuster's yardage. I saw 45.5. It's a guy that a lot of people, including myself, gave a chance to be a target hog, if you will, with Tyreek Hill gone in Kansas City, obviously going to Miami. He left you with Kelsey. And outside of McCole Hardman, a lot of guys that hadn't seen a lot of Patrick Mahomes targets. Just really hasn't come to fruition. There was a little bit of a couple bumps up where Juju was seeing 9 to 10 targets over a couple game run. He obviously was hurt for a little bit, but recently he is just not getting the target share it takes to be able to be excited about playing his overs. And last week, I think he only had 2 targets, if I'm not mistaken. So 45.5 seems awfully ambitious, especially if you're under the opinion like I am that downfield plays from the wide receiver group of the Chiefs are probably unlikely to happen unless they happen 1 or 2 times. I'm willing to take that chance with Juju, who just for some reason feels like he's 20 playing as a 30-year-old, even though he's young. He's very young still. Yeah. He just got an early start, but he just doesn't seem like the same guy we saw in Pittsburgh over the first couple. Just doesn't have the juice like he did early on in his career in Pittsburgh. So I'm willing to take a chance that he's not going to see the volume and he's not going to make more than 1 big play. We'll go under Juju.
I like that. I will say one thing about Juju. You know what he's not doing this year? He's not making those TikToks. I don't know if that's about Mahomes rule, but you know what I mean? Like he was making all those TikToks when he was with the Steelers. I haven't seen one. Maybe I'm missing him, but I haven't seen any Juju Smith-Schuster TikToks dancing on the field before a game.
I'm not the right source to know, but you're right. Maybe maybe Mahomes included him with his wife and his brother to tell him just, we're all business here. But
And I mean, I like that just because we don't know what we're going to get from Mahomes. Is this going to be a heavy passing, rushing game? Is he going to be trying to get the ball out? I mean, Hardman could be coming back. Maybe they try to get Hardman the ball in space. So I like that play a lot. And if he's not going to put that number up against Trey Herndon, who's the slot cornerback of the Jacksonville Jaguars, he's not going to put it up against the Bengals. My third and final bet going to the same game, but I'm taking Tyler Boyd over 30.5 receiving yards. The issue with the Chiefs defense is defending the slot. We saw that in the Jags game with the game that Christian Kirk had. The last 3 slot receivers the Chiefs have played have all gone over this total. In those 3 games, they have averaged 8.3 targets, 7 receptions, and 51 yards. You look at the 3 games Boyd has played in his career against the Kansas City Chiefs. He's gone over this total 2 out of 3 times. He's averaging 5.5 targets, 4 receptions, and 48 yards. So I absolutely love Tyler Boyd over 30.5 yards receiving.
Gotta love it. Tyler Boyd had obviously the one big catch down the sidelines in the Bills game, but they didn't really need to put their foot on the gas pedal and throw the ball much in the second half. We're due for a big Tyler Boyd game, aren't we? I mean, I think if they play 2 games here in the next 3 weeks, he's going to have a big game in one of them, and you got the matchup you won against the Chiefs, so I like it quite a bit.
And I mean, what the Chiefs DC does, and of course I'm spacing on his name,
Steve
Spagnuolo. He has a history of blitzing and taking away your number 1 option. So they're going to look to double chase, take away chase. This is going to – T. Higgins isn't 100%. So this is going to definitely open some stuff up for Boyd. So I absolutely love Tyler Boyd. And you know what? Call me crazy. If I was going to play a first touchdown score in this game and I could get Tyler Boyd at 20-1, I'd take Tyler Boyd too.
There you go. And we could throw him in that same DFS lineup, right?
I like it. I like it a lot. Scott, I'd like to thank you for coming on, talking some NFL. It's been a joy. Why don't you tell everyone where they can find you on social media?
Yeah, great being on with you, Eric. Always love talking ball with new people. And you can find me on Twitter at ScottShap34. And just super excited for the games on Sunday. Got the I think we got the 4 best teams in football here personally, but it remains to be seen how it plays out.
You know what? Should be a great week of football. Thanks for tuning in, everybody. We'll be back next week. Let's make some money and let's cash some tickets.